Okay, who has never used virtualization before? Everybody has used virtual machines. Okay, who has used enterprise virtualization before? Okay, and who has used like VMware Workstation and all the desktop stuff? Okay, and the rest doesn't matter. Good. Well, what I'm talking about is enterprise virtualization, which basically means that you have servers running the virtual machines on top, and it's not like you're having them on your own desktop, because in that case, it's pretty simple to capture. What we have is we have one physical box here, and on top of that, we have a lot of virtual machines. Depending on the hardware and software that you have, you can run like hundreds of them on one single server. I had students in my class, and when I'm teaching VMware, sometimes they tell me like, yeah, we just bought new servers, they have 512 gigs of RAM. Ah, no, wait, we're going to upgrade to 1 terabyte. I'm like, okay, that's a lot of RAM. And they have 64 cores and all that stuff, so lots of equipment. And on those physical servers, you need to, or you will share CPU cycles, you will share the memory. Memory is actually the most important thing. If you have money to spend on virtualization, you're probably going to size it for memory and then for CPU power and then everything else. Network adapter is always a funny topic, because whenever I talk to people who haven't seen enterprise virtualization yet and ask them how many network adapters would you put in a machine like this, how many would you put in it? 6? Okay. Some of them have people who say 2 should be enough, right? And at the end of the class, they're like, well, if I can get 12, that should be enough. Yeah? So you want as much as you can, because you need to design a lot of virtual networks. The more adapters you have, the more flexible you are. So if anybody is asking you to design an enterprise virtualization host, put some money on the side for the network cards. You need a lot of them. At least 8, 12 is better, and after that it's pure luxury. Okay, common solution that we have right now is Citrix, Microsoft Hyper-V, Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, and VMware vSphere. I'm mostly going to do VMware vSphere just because I know the most about it. The others are fine too, because they're all in the same area of features. And if one has it, the other one will have it soon too. So it basically doesn't matter. If you see this on virtualization, or see this on VMware, you can apply everything that I do probably to all the others as well. Alright, this is a typical setup that you need to get used to. You have a physical switch on the outside, then you have a physical network card on your virtualization host, and inside there's a virtual switch. If you know desktop virtualization, you're probably used to using stuff like bridge mode, net mode, or host only, no communication. And you need to have them. And the one thing that you need to keep in mind is these virtual switches, they can have a physical adapter, but they might not. If they don't have it, there's a problem, because the data between those two is never going to the outside world where you want to capture it. So we'll talk about that in a bit. And the other thing is, of course, that you can have like 10, 20, 30 machines on one virtual switch coming on one single network card. And if you want to capture on one of them, well, you get a lot of additional data that you probably don't want. So you need to think about capture filters and all that kind of stuff. One of the funniest things, basically, by the way, is if you have guys on the physical switches in a real networking department, because there's always this fight between the virtualization team and the networking team concerning those virtual switches. Whose responsibilities are there? Is it networking or is it virtualization? So very often the guys on the physical switches have stuff like port security on them, which is quite funny, because if you have 100 machines here, their MAC addresses will show up on that port. And very often it gets shut down after the 5th or whatever number they have. So port security isn't a good solution if you have virtualization hosts. You can keep that in mind. If you're troubleshooting stuff like that and they tell you, my connection gets disconnected all the time and I lose connectivity to all the virtual machines on that switch port, it's probably because of port security. Alright, capturing virtual servers, well, the virtual server shares the same network card as I already said, and then you could try to spend or tap into this physical link, meaning this here. You could put a tap on that or a span port. But as I said, you get a lot of data on it. So the challenge is, if you followed my advice and bought like 12 network cards for your virtualization host, well, you need to find the correct one. Where's the data coming out actually? It might be any of them. So you have to find that first. That is one of the challenges that you have. Then you need to isolate it, and if you have servers with a 10 gig link, good luck. Who's captured on a 10 gig link? You're trying to. Okay, it's no fun at all. It's like data like. If you use Wireshark with scrolling, it will basically turn into a freeze frame. Not a chance. It's not Wireshark's fault, by the way, because I always have students in my networking classes who are like, well, why can't I scroll in a gigabit capture? Because too many packets. I mean, what do you want to do? It's like a slideshow. You see 1,000 packets and then the packet number 100,000. And everything between that is just not displayed because it's too fast. Okay, another one that might drive us crazy is that we can actually combine physical network cards on a virtual switch. Why do they do that? First of all, they do it to have more bandwidth, and the second, redundancy. So now the problem is, if I want to capture this guy here coming out, is he using this card or that one? Maybe both. The more cards you have, the more in trouble you are. If you're lucky, he's using only one card and you're able to find out which one it is. In that case, capturing is almost simple. If you don't, well, the setup of the capture will take a long time because you need to find out first where the connection is coming up. If I have communication on the internal switch, as I already said, that's bad luck because it will never go to the outside world. So if I'm connecting a sniffer or a Wireshark outside here somewhere, I will never see what those two are doing because they live on the same host, they're communicating internally, and it's on memory. And it's very fast, by the way, because even if they have here like simulated 10 megabit cards, they can communicate like sometimes with gigabit speeds because it's internally in the host. So it might be faster than you're actually able to capture anyway. So that is a problem too. All right, for the strategies that they're using to distribute the traffic from the machines to the outside world, there are a couple of strategies. At least these are the ones that VMware has. So if you're managing a VMware server, you will see those 3 or 4 depending on your license. And what happens here is that each network card gets assigned one card by the strategy that you have. The default is port ID based, which means whenever you turn on a virtual machine here, every card gets assigned one physical card, and that's it. It won't change anymore unless one breaks down or you turn off the virtual machine. Otherwise, it stays on that card, which is pretty good because that way, if you find out which card it's using, it will hopefully not move to another card unless, well, the card breaks down. The next one is source MAC hash. That is one of the features where I wonder why they put it in because they're calculating on the MAC of the source virtual machine, and that doesn't change at all, so the card doesn't change at all, and it's just more computing power required to get to the same result at the port ID base. So, well, my idea is that somebody put a large bag of money on the table of VMware and said, we need this, and they were like, we don't know why, but we put it in there. So that sort of thing. Okay. The next one is actually pretty interesting, source destination IP base. That can, well, that is the only one, at least in VMware, that can lead to one machine talking to a client on the outside world using a different card because it will calculate his IP address and his, and if he's somewhere, I only have one machine on the outside, but if there would be more, he would try to hash it across all adapters. In that case, you need to be careful because then you need to tell the physical switches that the MAC address of the machine can appear on each of them. Because otherwise you have the typical MAC address jumping over ports, and the switches usually don't like that. And they want to have the MAC address on one port, or you need to tell them it's a channel or whatever it's called at the vendor of the switch. And the last one is pretty new. That is basically the same as the port ID based one. So turning on the machine, one card to the outside world is selected, but if the virtualization host here, the green thing is always the virtualization host, if he detects that one card is getting very crowded with data because all the machines that are assigned to that one card put so much data on it, he's allowed to redistribute. In that case, it will use another card from then on. So if you're capturing on one card, it could happen that it gets switched away from your capture point. So suddenly your data is cut in half and you don't have it all in your trace file. Okay. Now to the cluster basics, and that's where the dark clouds come in, because that gets messy. Imagine this, you have more than one physical host, and usually if you're doing enterprise virtualization, you have at least 2, better 3. Yeah, because they don't only want to distribute the load, they also want to have high availability. In case one crashes, they want the others to be able to run the virtual machines from then on. So you have multiple virtual machines running on multiple hosts, going to the outside world on multiple cards, and that's the moment where it gets tricky. If it's your own enterprise solution and you have access to the virtualization guys, you can probably find a way that they tell you which card you need to capture on. What happens to us a lot when we go to customers and they have something like this, it's like, yeah, we have this virtualization, but no, we don't know anyone who knows anything about the network card being used by that virtual machines. So it's basically like, oh my god, what are we going to do? We had one case, and I think I have the slide in there where it's shown how big the installation was, where we had 2 weeks of planning to find the spot where to capture. 2 weeks just for that. Because they needed to make sure that everything was in the right place and that we wouldn't capture for like a day, and then later looking at the capture files and finding out that all the traffic wasn't in the trace files. Yeah? So that took a lot of preparation. So server clusters are always difficult to capture, and that doesn't always only apply to virtualization clusters. It also applies to anything else that is basically distributing load on several servers. Before virtualization, we often had trouble with stuff like Windows Remote Desktop Protocol servers, terminal servers, Citrix terminal servers, the like. Because if somebody tells you that he has a problem with the remote desktop client, you probably don't know where he's ending up. Yeah? He's connecting to this cluster, he gets one machine as his host, but you don't know which one it is. And the problem with that is, you could probably tell him, well, force the machine or force the user on a certain server every time he connects, and then I capture that server. But as soon as you do that, you won't have the problem anymore, for guarantee. Yeah? At customer sites, I've been offered chairs to sit next to servers and doing nothing. Yeah, they would pay me for just sitting there, because as soon as I enter the building, everything will work. And said, here's a chair for you, sit down, we pay you, quit your job, just sit down there, everything is fine. And I was like, yeah, too boring. Okay, what you also could do, capture as a common cluster uplink. But that today means probably going for 10 gigs or even more. 40 coming up. Napatech now has a card for that. So if you want to go through all those packets, I don't. No, that's no fun. And then the Las Vegas style, which I sometimes see by students of mine, who just capture somewhere like it could be there. And then they look into the trace file and they find out, no, it didn't. Okay, next capture here. No luck. So they're just capturing somewhere, hoping that they get the packets, which is plain stupid. You need to find a better solution to that. Yeah. The other things we have is that in virtualization clusters we have 2 techniques that might give us trouble too. The first is load balancing. Load balancing means that if you have like 10 virtualization hosts running 150 virtual machines or even more, the cluster may move them around at any given time. Like, oh, this one is taking a lot of RAM here, I better move it to that virtualization host. Yeah? And he does that on full automatic, usually. So you could be capturing a machine, and it works fine. You see all the data that you want, and right in the middle of the capture, this damn cluster moves the machine away. So you capture it like, cut in half and you don't see the data anymore. That is actually something that I want to show you live at the end of this talk. I hope it will work because the servers are in Germany and well, it's a couple of thousand miles away. I hope it works, we will see. If it doesn't, well, just as I tell you, it gets cut in half and you don't have the data that you want. Or at least not all of them. The other one is high availability. That is basically for catching problems with the virtualization host failing completely. So if one crashes, all the machine go down with it and they get restarted on another host, which is almost like a manual restart or an automatic restart of virtual machines on another host. So you have the problem that it is not anymore at the capture point that you chose because the host crashed. But if that happens, you have a problem anyway. This line is stated. Virtual machines may move from host to host without warning at any given time. So if their cluster is on fully automatic or if your cluster is on full automatic, well, you should think about maybe we can turn it off for the length of the capture. Yeah? Just keep the machines where they are. The server guys from the virtualization cluster won't like it at all, yeah? Because they need to rebalance all that stuff all the time, because if they have load peaks somewhere and the utilization goes up in some point and you're forcing them not to redistribute the load, they will get angry. So, well, you need to find a way to get an agreement with them. Also, what you need for this kind of virtualization is shared storage. Why do you need shared storage for this? You need shared storage because every virtualization host should be able to run the virtual machines. And that means that the files that they're made of need to be in a place all servers can see. Which means you need to have shared storage. So either file channel, iSCSI, or FS. Yeah, that is the thing that you need to have. And for your sake, I hope that you never have to capture on the data storage thingy because you'll be in trouble. There's so much data, that's just no fun. Yeah, so let's hope that the storage solution is fine and we only have to cope with the production network traffic of the virtual machines, because otherwise it gets messy. Okay, I have a small animation of VMs on the move. Basically, like, if this server here is the server of my interest and I'm capturing on this network card because I know it's going out to the outside world on that connector, this could happen. It's moving to the other host, which will interrupt my trace hop. It will just be cut in half, as already said. So you don't want that to happen, and that is something that you need to make sure before. Okay, cluster movement features, high availability, as I already said. Well, it's not really a movement feature, it's just a restart feature. And real high availability is also available on some solutions, which is done by having a second virtual machine running in invisible mode that gets constantly updated all the time. So you have the primary machine that actually runs and is productive in an active passive configuration, and the other one is passive and gets synchronized all the time. And if the first one fails, the other one takes over. In that case, you could predict where it will end up because the secondary machine will take over. But still, we hope that when we're capturing, that the host won't crash. Otherwise, you have other problems and network problems anyway. Fully automatic live VM moving is the feature where it can move machines around all the time, and that's the one that you need to put your thoughts into, because that will probably be the case in any cluster that you encounter. Nobody I know runs his cluster in manual mode. Nobody, because they get recommendations all the time, like move this machine here to do that, and move this here to do this, and get that one here because there's a better memory usage. And they get tired of clicking OK all the time, so they put it in automatic sooner or later. Usually after 2 weeks of clicking OK all the time. So then you have a fully automatic cluster and capturing is difficult. So some capture strategies that I have. First of all, install Wireshark on the virtual system of interest. Who has ever installed Wireshark on a system that you wanted to capture? Couple. Yeah, like this. He's complaining about it soon. You need to know that it has some disadvantages. What kind of disadvantages do you have if you're on Wireshark on an affected system?
We're only looking at that system. We could like.
Yeah, you're only looking at that system, and yeah, what is this? Like this. You get funny things like CSC checksum errors, tagging is not done already, because segmentation offload, so you get huge packets. I have a trace file with a 32 kilobyte big packet in there. That's because the network card does so many things now that the CPU doesn't have to do. But Wireshark will grab the packet before it's actually on the wire. So what you'll see is what is actually happening before it goes out, which is one of the fun things if you're talking to guys running Microsoft NetMode, because they will tell you the network is broken, all these checksums are with errors, and you have two big packets, and the network is totally the problem here. And it's just because even NetMode has, of course, the same problem. They capture the packets before they're complete. They need to be constructed completely, and that happens after you capture them. You can't grab them later, so you need to be able to cope with that. Yeah, you need to exactly know why it's happening. Sometimes it's the only option. The one thing that I want to show you where this is the only option is, I prepared a cloud computer on Amazon. This one. This is at the Amazon EC2 cloud, which is in America, so this one is fast. And I have Wireshark here, so I could capture. I already installed it to save some time. So I could go and just do something. Yeah. And I have all the packets here, of course. No checksum errors, nothing. And I wondered why. And then I looked at the network connection. Oh, sorry. Double click. Properties. Bigger. They are smart. They put disable on this. Yeah, so this is the default. I didn't change anything. When you get a computer or a virtual machine at Amazon, they put the checksum and packet offloading stuff on disable. Because I think they got too many tickets on their trouble ticket system. Alright, so this was just, it's a quick thing, because basically if I want to go to Amazon and tell them I want to capture this machine here, and I give them the name, they will probably not let me into their computing center just to capture it. So this is the only option that I have. I have no control over the physical computers that this machine is running on. So this is the only thing that I can do. Yeah? Sometimes you don't have any other option for this. Okay, go away. Also, and I think I said that last time, it may crash the VM if you're not, or if you're very unlucky, it may crash the VM because installing a capture solution is going into the TCP stack or the network stack and may do some bad things. I had one accounting server crashing with a blue screen when somebody tried to install some capture solution. It wasn't Wireshark, it was I think a Zipper Pro from Network General. And well, can you imagine an administrator that crashed an accounting server that people worked on for a whole day and they lose all their data? Accounting people are very funny that way because you won't see your travel expenses for the next year anytime soon, because they're like, oh, this guy, he was the one who crashed our server and he had to rent everything. He will get his travel expenses like in the next year. So don't do it if you can avoid it. Okay, next one. Put a capture here, like a span port, maybe. Span ports, I mean, there's so many talks around here about disadvantages of span ports and types. I'm not going into this because this is one of the typical fights that you can get into. Is it better, is it not so good? I mean, it depends on the situation. Sometimes you can't afford to pull to open or disconnect the cables, then you can't tap into it. Sometimes you're not allowed to do a span port either. I had one company where they said, well, this internal switch, if we put in a span port, it works just fine. If you take it out, it crashes. It was a core switch of a large bank, and if their core crashes, they're not happy. So in that case, they can only use tabs, or they said we can only use tabs to get to the data. And well, you can do this, but you still have the problem. It could move away. It could be too much data. Well, you have just to cope with it. It's the most familiar way because it's basically what we do all the time with capturing machines. Yeah? I mean, Most of you are probably doing spam ports, right? Who's doing spam ports most of the time? The rest is tapping or using hubs. I hope so. Okay. Next one. Yeah, I have already said that all. It's mega root of the server, so it's not. This is the example that we have. It was in Switzerland, and we had to capture web servers in combination with a load balancer, a client, and a SQL server cluster. That was fun because they couldn't tell us where the servers are, and they could only tell us there's the VM virtualization cluster. By the way, it's made of 32 hosts, I think, with 16 network cards each. Good luck finding the right one. So that took 2 weeks to get sorted out where we wanted to capture. We ended up capturing at the client after the load balancer because we said, well, if we capture at the client, we can skip this one. We only need what comes out of the load balancer on the other way. Then it goes into the web server, so we capture it on a couple of the links here, and we finally got the idea, well, we could try to spend the VLAN that they're on, and that worked finally. But that took ages to find out. I mean, nobody could tell us where they are, what network they had, at what physical location we could pick it up, and that's always the challenge. You need to find the one physical location here where you can pick it up. If you don't find it, you have more or less lost the case. And then, of course, the SQL cluster, but then we're talking to the web server. So by capturing these four here, their VLAN, we captured everything going in and everything connecting to the cluster server. And that way we got it. Yeah? But it was a lot of data. I mean, you need a big machine for this. You couldn't do it with just one laptop. That wouldn't work. It was just too much. I think it was a capture job of a total of 600 to 700 gigs. Yeah, and then trying to find the problem. That's another story, but that's the one example. Too much data. Well, there are some strategies that you can use to handle too much data. First of all, you could use frame slicing. Frame slicing, in my terms, means that you're capturing not the complete packet, but only the first 64 bytes or whatever you want. If you're sure that you don't need the payload, you can do that. In this example here, we did slicing because it was HTTPS encrypted, and we didn't get the key because it was a bank, and they're not like, well, here's our SSL key, have fun with it. So we didn't need the payload anyway. Yeah, so we sliced it down to 64 bytes, I think. Spend only as few effective ports as possible. You want to minimize the amount of data that you get, because searching through the data that you get is hard enough, and you don't want more data than you need. Use a filtering tab. That's, I don't know, have you ever seen a filtering tab? These are network tabs that you can put into a communication line and program it and tell it, well, I will only want that communication. Just get me the first bytes of that packet and only get me the packets if they match this VLAN tag. And it's basically a hardware box pre-filtering the packets that get distributed through the capture machine. Yeah, they're very expensive, so if you want to buy them, some people will be very happy at the sales department of those vendors. I think we have a couple of them here at the vendor reception area. Gigamon, for example, is one of them. With them, you can just pre-select packets that you want and leave out all the rest, which is one of the strategies that you need to learn as soon as you're going to capture 10 gig or 40 gig links, because you don't want to work on gigs or 10 gig links or 40 gig links with all packets unsliced. It's just too much. You can fill up a terabyte disk in a couple of seconds. So who wants to look through that? That's no fun. So filter it, yeah, and then only look through the packets that you really want. Capture filters might help, but as you probably know, if you apply filters on a capturing machine, it has to do some more work, just like we saw in the keynote today. Even if it's highly optimized, it may not be fast enough to give you all the packets, and you have drops. Drop packets, you know, are packets that couldn't be captured because for performance issues, you didn't get them, even though they were there. Some people can work through traces with dropped packets and argue that there must have been there because they got acknowledged and stuff like that. But it's always better to have all the packets. So maybe it will work, maybe it doesn't. And my advice is usually go for dump cap on the command line, because basically that's what Wireshark does internally anyway. If you start a capture, it's not Wireshark capturing, it's just triggering dump cap and telling it, okay, this interface, do this, go. And well, in that way you could just use dump cap directly. Dump cap minus uppercase D will tell you which interfaces you have, and then minus lowercase I, and then the number, and you're good to go. Just write it into a file, and you can capture as much as you want, hopefully. Or if you buy a TurboCap card, yeah, there's a TC dump utility, I think it's called, that can do that too. Okay, then I have a couple of new capture strategies, more or less, because I can't demonstrate them right now. What we have is that, what can you do with the virtual switch? I mean, I showed you the virtual switch with the internal communication of the two machines that are talking to each other. It's never getting to the outside world, so you can't pick it up on the outside world at all, because it's just happening internally in the server. In the worst case, this internal virtual switch behaves like a 20, 30, 40 buck switch, which can't do anything. But in most cases, they have some sort of mechanism that you can get to a little data. The one for VMware is called promiscuous mode, which is a bit confusing because most of you probably know promiscuous mode, which means that you disable the hardware filter on your network card to be able to accept all packets. Yeah, everybody knows that? Yeah, promiscuous mode you should know about, because otherwise you only see packets for the capturing machine, which is not so much fun. Promiscuous mode also exists as a mechanism on VMware servers, and that means that the switch gets into some sort of hub mode. It will distribute all packets incoming and outgoing to all ports. Yeah? It's normally disabled because it's a security risk. Everybody could sniff all the traffic from all other machines if you enable that. So you should only do it if you're capturing data for an analysis, of course. This is the security risk. Also, of course, you have increased traffic. You don't want to send too much traffic to all the virtual machines that they don't need anyway. So don't leave it turned on after you're done. Turn it back off. For security reasons and for traffic reasons. Then we have a special virtual switch, the Cisco Nexus 1000V. Maybe heard of it, maybe not. If you have that one, it has an iOS, or whatever that system from Microsoft is called now, and you can use span ports on that one. So you could span the internal port to another internal port and have another machine capturing the data coming from that. Yeah? I don't have one of these because they're, from the license point of view, a bit too expensive for me, because I would have to buy it for my own salary, and well, I'm not that rich. But this one can do it. And then we have virtual taps, which is a pretty new thing. Actually, I got one from NetOptics. It's called the Phantom Tap. I got it installed, but I was too dumb to configure it in the time that I had for the license. So the license ran out, and I didn't have time to play around with it. But they can do stuff like having virtual taps inserted into the communication and getting only the traffic that you want for you. Yeah, but they want money for it. So you need to have somebody who pays for it. And the installation configuration isn't that easy. I mean, I tried it, and I'm pretty good with VMware now. And I think I know a thing or two about networks and taps and everything. But that combination was still very complicated, because this tap actually is a virtual machine that we have to install, and that gets tapped into some internal mechanism. And that, to configure that one, not so easy. Has anyone ever done that? Configure a Phantom tap? It worked for you? No. Okay.
No problem.
Okay, so you can show me how it works.
Yeah.
Okay, next time. No more slides. It was too many slides anyway, right? Nobody asleep now? Okay. It could happen. Good. So, what I want to do is something I have done last time too. I'm going to do a remote capture. Who has ever done a remote capture before with Wireshark? A couple. Okay. What you need for that is, I hope I'm allowed to use this board here. I will clean it afterwards. This is my laptop. And I'm here, right there. Alright? And now I will run Wireshark on it. And via VPN connection, I will go to a remote capture installation in Germany at my server cluster, which is somewhere over here. Let's say there's another PC that has Wireshark on it for the remote capture even, RPCAT. And I will tell from my Wireshark machine this RPCAT to capture for me and send me the data back to my machine. Okay, so this is in Germany and this is in Stanford. So it's a long way, about 8,000, 10,000 miles. We'll see how much we get. Right here I have my cluster. This is made of 3 machines and they're all on one switch. And I have a span port to this machine. So I will capture one machine to this remote capture thingy. The remote capture thingy has the IP that you see up here. These are the adapters of the remote machine, and to show it to you how that works, I will start Wireshark again. I hope it will work because sometimes the 1.6 doesn't come up on my laptop all the time. Hello. Okay. I have to kill it once. Start it again. Oh. Okay, that was a bad idea. Now
the recent file, okay.
Huh?
The recent file.
There's a recent file. You think that's it? Okay, now it works. That was you scattered. Okay, I click on the advanced capture options, and this is what you usually have, local capture. This means that I'm using any capture card or any network card on this machine to capture, which is what I don't want. I want to capture remotely, so I enter this IP address. It will ask me for a authentication because I don't want anyone to capture on my remote machine. Well, it's a VPN anyway, but oh, one moment. This is the list of my cards here, as you can see. I have a Wi-Fi card and a gigabit card, right? Now I connect to the remote machine. And you see, totally different cards now. Yeah. As you can see, I have a lot of capture cards in there because it's an installation where I want to be able to capture at different points. The one that I need right now is this good old Intel Pro 100 card. And what I'm also going to do to minimize the amount of traffic on the line back here to Stanford is I will put in a 64-byte limit, and I will limit it to TCP packets only, so that I get only a certain amount of packets. Just small header stuff, and only if it's TCP. So now it's capturing. Basically, it's capturing on my machine back in Germany and sending the captured data to us. And by the way, where does it get timestamped? Here or there? There. It gets timestamped here, so you don't have any delay by the transport, which is another thing. All right, nothing is happening, which is expected. So what I'm going to do is I do a transfer now. Just from my machine here, I will open up another session and do an FTP download. FTP, that way. So I'm having the packets here and the FTP transfer at the same time. Okay, that's download. You can see in the background. Yeah. If you know a little bit about FTP, this should look familiar to you. So let's get some ISO. There you can see, there comes the data. And now what I will do now is, this is the front end for my VMware installation, and this vAvalanche is the server that it's running on. It's on this server, ESX1. And I will move it to ESX2 now, while I'm capturing. And it's spanning ESX1. So what we should see takes a while. Yeah, you see the capture is still working. I can try to move that up a little. see the movement is in progress right now. And here the capture suddenly stops. Yeah, so I don't capture anymore because the machine has moved away from my span port on the TSX, but the download is still running. So the machine that I'm FTPing from, which is the virtual machine here, has moved to this one, and that way the span port doesn't work anymore. Now this is what can happen to you if you capture on a cluster like that. Now I did the manual move, but the fully automated cluster, the cluster can decide to do that at any time. Yeah, so if you're spending just one port, it's like your trace file cut in half, and you don't know what happened. Yeah? So I could even go and move it back. Yeah? So I use this one and move it back to number 1. Capture, still running. FTP, still running. So it should be moving back. You can see here. And at some point my capture should continue. See? It continues. So I moved it away and I moved it back. And you can see I should have a large data time hole somewhere in my capture. Yeah, so this is something that you need to take care of. Yeah, you don't want the machine to move away because it just disrupts your capture. So it worked this time again. Great. I don't need this one. I can stop this one here too. Alright, the other thing that I want to show is I have another machine here. It's called Outpost. It's called Outpost because it's basically a desktop for me that is in the German Computing Center. Whenever I wanted to see that I need another machine that is in another location, I just do RDP to it and use that as a workstation that is in a completely different location. So this is a machine that is probably somewhere here. Now, that is the Outpost. And I have 2 other machines on the same host, on a virtual switch, that are pinging each other all the time. Avalanche and Serenity. And I want to capture that. So what I did is, I have added a capture card. This one. This capture card is actually connected to the same switch like those 2. And they're doing internal communication only. You will not see it in the outside world because the ping goes between the 2 machines on the same host. I start Wireshark and capture on this virtual switch, and I don't see anything because the switch right now is not in promiscuous mode. Remember I told you about promiscuous mode. Promiscuous mode means every port gets everything. Right now, I don't. So what I want to do now is add another capture filter not to get slammed by too much packets. So I put in ICMP. Start. Okay, and now I will reconfigure the switch that those 2 are on, which is this one here. You can see here's a management port group where all the 3 machines are on. And I will go to that one. Management network. Yeah. No, management, this one is it. And now I will go to security and set promiscuous mode from reject to accept. And suddenly you see the ping. So now I told the switch, give me all the packets that go over the switch, also to my workstation back there. So now I get it all. That's the only way to capture on internal switches. You need to tell the switch, give me all the packets. Unless the vendor of your virtualization thing has another solution for you, like span ports on the Nexus 1000V or stuff like that, or a VTAP. Yeah? That way you could get to the data too. But this is basically using the tools coming with the virtualization solution without paying any additional money. Yeah? So that's what I would do. Problem, of course, is if I wouldn't have applied the capture filter, I would get tons of data, because not only the 3 machines are on here, but a lot of other machines as well. And I don't want them. So you need to work with a combination of, well, working in the virtual world as well as using capture filters and stuff like that to get to the data. Yes?
If you're capturing on the virtual switch and one of the VMs moves to a different physical host, will you still
get disrupted? Yes, because this is only per switch on that host. You configure them per host. So what happens here is that if I want to be able to move a machine from one to the other, I need to have the same switch with the exact same name on every one of them. Yeah, so it needs to be here, here, and here. And if I move this one to here, it's like, yeah, but basically that's maybe a better solution, because now I'm forcing the communication to go to the outside world. Now I could span it, yeah, but it's a lot slower, because now I have this physical network card here that is a limiting factor. The internal communication is as fast as it could be, because it's just RAM being transferred. Here I have now physical network cards, which is the reason why people very often keep machines that communicate a lot with each other together on the same host. Okay?
You think moving, if they were originally both on the same host,
yeah,
talking about the same base switch, you move one of them, it's not going to be a Facebook anymore? You don't cap it?
Right. Well, what I was showing her right here is communication on internal switches only. Then they don't have an uplink, and I couldn't move them away. That's a limitation. In this case, I gave them an uplink, and that way it would work. But if I would have something like this here, without any uplink to the outside world, I would not be allowed to move them away, because it would disrupt the communication between those two. Okay, that's a limitation that they all have right now.
By putting a switch in a promiscuous mode, can you bring down the switch or any of the adapters?
The switch well enough, but you kill the complete virtualization host. Depending on how much traffic is slamming into it, you might be able to overload the complete host with it. So you should be very careful. Stuff like that should only be done on certain port groups, like these are specific. I can show you here on the graphical interface. One moment. As you can see, I have a lot of different port groups here, and you should only do this on a port group, not on the complete switch, because otherwise you will overload it at some point. Yeah, even especially if it's a very big machine, then it gets killed very fast. Okay, so basically this worked better than last time, because last time one of the things I wanted to show, like the internal capture, didn't work. So I prepared myself better this time. If you have any questions, shoot. If you don't, try to escape this room full of warm air and get something to drink.
On the remote capture, the connection between the local Wireshark and the remote one, is that encrypted, that connection, the 2002, the TCP connection between the
Yeah, the RKP.
Okay.
Right now it's encrypted because I'm sending it through my VPN tunnel, which is an open VPN tunnel.
Okay,
so this would be encrypted,
right.
But I don't think that the packets in itself are. The protocol probably is not encrypted because you're adding additional latency to it by the encryption, and you wouldn't do that because if you're doing remote captures, you should be in control of both systems anyway. They should belong to you. Yeah? So, well, the line between them should be yours too, and that way you don't need encryption. Okay, I think good luck.